And that tells me that it's more probably about politics than the actual letter of the law. And I think that will help the situation if a mom has another alternative to raising it herself. To have a two-state solution, you have to have two sides that want that solution. You could start oil exploration to see what is there. That would be an issue that he would be addressing as president. Is there another shoe to drop, something we don't know about? And if not, then why is he gone? Well, I mean, I think friction generally isn't good, but this was inevitably going to come to a head because we've had what I think is a very poor immigration policy for several decades now that has done a fair amount of economic damage to the lower end of Americans. So because Mexico is not nearly so adamant about enforcing their northern border as they are their southern border, and because both Republicans and Democrats have had some political gain by winking and nodding at a very fluid border and allowing illegals in, it's been a bad situation. That was eventually going to catch up politically with us, and it did. I think we know for fair certainty that the border crossings are going to mirror the strength of the economy in Mexico, and Mexico's economy is going to be clearly attached to the U.S. economy. So when our economy was really bad, Mexico's was really bad, there was a lot more Mexicans coming here in hopes of finding work. As our economy improved and Mexico's economy improved, there was much less of that, and some of them felt like they could go home and find work. So it makes a lot of sense from an economic perspective. And I was one of them, actually. I was a real fan of NAFTA because I'm a free trade person in principle and philosophy. I'm not sure that NAFTA's worked out quite as much as well as we thought it would. I think that, I don't know that it needs to be totally junked, but I think it really needs to be seriously renegotiated so that it's a little bit more fair to the United States. Not a panacea at all, but to me it is at this point now a necessary tool to have in the toolbox because it's been too much of an open sieve. I mean, I love the idea of working together with the Mexican government to try and fight the cartels there. And I also agree that, that the physical threat is crime and terror, but I also think there's an economic threat of, you know, we've talked before about when you have most of the illegals coming over the southern border are going to be unskilled, uneducated, and they're going to be taking the low-end jobs, and that hurts working Americans and lower-income Americans. But we've I never like that phrase, jobs that Americans don't want to do unless you add on at the current price point, because in part because of our safety net. So yeah, Americans are not going to want to work the strawberry fields in Florida's heat for $3 an hour. They're just not going to. However, what that probably means is that the price of strawberries has been artificially low for too long. Those wages probably should be higher. And probably if they were higher, what would happen is there'd be some automation that would go on too. This is, to me, this is purely an economic issue. Not directly. If we're talking about are they going to write a check and front it, never in a billion years is that going to happen. However, that's not the only option, because the second part is, you know, a reasonable question is Congress going to fund it? And my point is they darn well better. That was, to me, that was part of the message of the election. They fund it, but the point is they can fund it. So that means the folks who are watching this tonight, they're going to pay for it. That's right. Up front. Look, we have to pay for immigration enforcement. That's part of the cost of a country, is having borders and paying for immigration enforcement. I think that that would be a much easier one because of the complications of repealing and replacing Obamacare and the you know, 100 million people that could affect in their health coverage and all, and a very complicated one. I think that the wall is pretty straightforward. Are you willing to fund it, and is there a plan for in some way getting repatriation money from Mexico to at least pay for part of it? There's little to none chance that they would, because they have their own internal politics to deal with. But those aren't the only ways. Look, there's a lot of money, hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars that flow from Mexicans that are in this country back to Mexico. Well, we have legal methods in which we can take a percentage of that money and apply it. That's not the only one. There's also, you know, there's other things regarding companies and company businesses that do it. None of these are perfect. I'm not surprised that Mexicans don't want to pay for the wall. Not having a wall has been very beneficial to Mexico in the first place. Why would they even want one in the first place, let alone actually pay for it?
Well, the amount Mexicans send 24 billion, more or less, to Mexico every year, right? The trade between Mexico and the United States is close to 300 billion. So for 20 billion, 24 or so billion, are you going to put in risk 300 billion in trade?
Well, right, but that's for goods and products and all. So that's an actual trade. This is just cash being sent from the country back to Mexico. So to me, those are two different items. I don't think those are an either-or proposition. I don't think Mexicans are going to stop buying American stuff because that there is a cost to sending money from Mexico or from America to Mexico.
Well, what are the Mexicans going to do if the United States builds a wall? Are they going to continue buying American products?
Sure they will. If they find it in their economic benefit to buy an American product, they will.
Right, but I would imagine that a trade war between both countries
we don't want a trade war. I'm totally opposed to trade wars, but I am in favor of fair trade. Good. I mean, I would love to have free trade, wide open free trade. But most of the rest of the world doesn't really want that. And we have enough leverage to where I think that we could negotiate much better trade deals that could give much free trade that is good for everybody, but is more fair to American workers also. Yes. The wall is going to go up. In some fashion or another, it's going to go up. And it better be to the satisfaction of the Trump supporters, too, that it goes up. It can't be a faux wall, you know, that's sort of, yeah, we got some surveillance stuff out there and call it a wall. I think there needs to be an actual real physical wall for large parts of it. Where people are coming through now. And I think that, you know, there are a number of ways to pay for it. But the bottom line is I think that Americans, when they elected Trump, one of the main things that they wanted from him was sort of common sense immigration reform. They wanted immigration security at the border. And they wanted the laws of the land enforced, which we haven't done for a long time on immigration.
What are the political implications if that does not happen?
One-term president. And loss of Congress for Republicans.
You don't think the base will stay with president if that wall does not go up?
I think you'll see a huge fracture in the Republican Party if the wall or something acceptably close enough doesn't happen. I'm not saying that we need the Great Wall of China for the whole thing, but we need something that is a serious detriment to coming across the border, and it's not just a chain link fence.
Okay. Why don't we leave it there? But